Welcome to our weekly Q&A sessions, and thanks for your great questions. And let's begin with Jill in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Lou, the Republicans did very well in the primaries this week. Do you think the Tea Party candidates will be able to muster the support to beat their Democratic opponents in November? And Jill, the answer is, in nearly every case, absolutely. And what is great fun is to watch the national lamestream liberal lazy media start its spin machine on the outcome of the elections this past week. The very idea that the Tea Party and the Sarah Palin endorsed candidates did so well is scaring the dickens out of the establishment. And by the way, not just in the Democratic Party, also in the Republican Party. We watched a terrific result, a lot of energy, a lot of turnout, and a lot of very positive results that I think will carry through into November. Absolutely outrageous and shameful what Karl Rove did, criticizing Christine O'Donnell, the surprise, I suppose you would say, Tea Party candidate in Delaware, who beat establishment candidate Congressman Mike Castle for the Senate race in Delaware. You know, that's unfortunate, and that kind of thing, for the Republican Party's sake, has got to end. Why am I interested? I'm an independent, because one-party rule has got to end come November 2nd. Bob in Tucson, Arizona. Seems Harry Reid is pandering to special interests just before the midterm elections. Why else would he attach the DREAM Act to a defense bill? How pathetic, and how correct you are. Bob, Senator Harry Reid is, in my opinion, one of the great characters of the current Senate. He's the most powerful senator, yet he's running neck and neck with Sharon Angle, the Tea Party Republican, in Nevada for his seat. That looks to me like a very likely win for the Republican Party. Sharon Angle turning out to be a much smarter and far more effective candidate than anyone, particularly in the national liberal media, ever gave her credit for. Harry Reid has turned out to be, well, what Harry Reid has been all along, given to malapropisms and oxymorons and just plain gibberish, and saying things like there are no illegal immigrants working in the construction industry in Nevada, while at the same time, just a matter of weeks before the November 2nd election, deciding it's time for the DREAM Act to give illegal immigrants rights that American citizens don't have, that is, across-the-board rights to in-state tuition. Astounding, and if he doesn't lose this election in Nevada, the people of Nevada then have got a much better sense of humor than I ever imagined. Monica in Santa Barbara, California. Why is everyone saying that John Boehner is willing to compromise on extending Bush middle-class tax cuts? I saw the interview. All he said was that if extensions for the middle-class tax cuts were all he could get, then he'd have to vote for them. He made it very clear that he'd prefer to extend all of the tax cuts. Well, Monica, welcome to what happens when the mainstream liberal media gets a hold of a story, and I noticed precisely what you did. The difference is I wasn't very surprised by it. The Boehner is a lot of things. He is not a great visionary political leader. That isn't his job. But he is a pragmatic leader, and for that he should get great credit, because the House of Representatives is a very tough environment in which to work rationally and toward solid, prudent, responsible goals, whether it's fiscal policy, foreign policy, or domestic policy. Boehner is doing just fine, and staying pragmatic is exactly the way, in my opinion, he should go. Gus in Athens, Georgia. I'm sick of this whole situation with the mosque and the burning of the Koran. Everyone wants to cry about tolerance and understanding. Neither of these actions demonstrate tolerance or serve to strengthen our society. Well, Gus, let me say this. Let's talk about tolerance and understanding. This country has more than a 200-year history of religious tolerance. How about Egypt? How about Kuwait? How about Saudi Arabia? What do you think? Shall we talk about tolerance and understanding there? We're having a debate, a national debate, because one imam tried to game the system and create a victory mosque in the shadows of Ground Zero, yet no one's asking, why aren't we seeing the building of a cathedral, a temple, a synagogue, a church, in Mecca or Medina? Where is the tolerance? Let's test the tolerance of the world. We've demonstrated ours. Now show us some respect. And by that I mean respect for the will of the American people, the will of the majority, who absolutely reject the idea of a mosque being built near Ground Zero. Why is it that the nation's news networks, this from Jim in Austin, Texas, are so slow to realize that they were responsible for blowing this Pastor Jones Koran burning into a huge story? And when are we as citizens going to stop cowering to lunatics rather than stand up for our country's values? How about right now, Jim? I think right now is the stand-up time, the time for all of us to stand up for our values and our ideals. By the way, it isn't the networks that were responsible. If you remember who blew this up, it was none other than General David Petraeus, who brought international attention to it, then the president, and then Attorney General Eric Holder, his entire administration seemingly focusing on one pastor in Gainesville, Florida, with plans to burn a Koran in his congregation of 50 families. Talk about nuts. That's nuts. Well, Carol in Arlington, Virginia wraps it up. Why can't this president bring himself to say that his billion-dollar infrastructure spending plan is a stimulus package? It's amazing to me the lack of honesty being tolerated by the American public. You bet. And not just on the this $50 billion stimulus plan. He's suggesting it'll work. What happened to the $800 billion stimulus plan? What about all the misrepresentation and misstatements made about Obamacare? Those deceits are coming back for a day of reckoning. And that day of reckoning is November 2nd of this year, when I think we're going to see the will of the majority expressed in very loud and clear language, the language of electoral politics at the polling booth. Thanks for being with us. Send us your questions to Lou at loudobbs.com. Great having you with us. See you next on the radio.